Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences in Universitas Indonesia. It is an honor for me to inform you that among us here, we have in our presence His Excellency, President of the Democratic Republic of Timor Leste, Dr. Jose Ramos-Horta, Rector of Universitas Indonesia, Professor Ari Kunchoro, SE, MA, PhD, Vice Rector of Academic and Student Affairs, Professor Dr. Abdul Haris, Dean of the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, Professor Semiarto Aji Purwanto, Deans and leaders of other Universitas Indonesia's faculties, Her and His Excellencies, Ministers of the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste, Adalgisa Albertina Xavier Reismano, Minister for Foreign Affairs and Cooperation, Jose Agustinho da Silva, Minister for Transport and Communications, Jose Lucas do Carmo Silva, Minister for Tourism, Trade and Industry, Pedro dos Reis, Minister for Agriculture and Fisheries, Member of Parliaments of the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste, the Honorable Nelia Menezes, Patrocinia Fernandez dos Reis, Domingas dos Santos, Mariano Asanami Sabino Lopez, and Olinda Guterres. And lastly, our distinguished guests, both who are present in this auditorium or watching the stream from Universitas Indonesia's YouTube channel and UITV. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Quinta Alaya Emirsha. I am an international relations undergraduate student from this faculty, and I will be the master of ceremony for today's event. Before we proceed, I would like to kindly ask all attendees to please silence your mobile phones during this public lecture event. Distinguished guests, as neighbors, the bilateral relations between Timor-Leste and Indonesia have persistently improved and will continue to be nurtured in the upcoming times. Therefore, today, we will obtain views on the development of Timor-Leste and insights about the nation's engagement with the global world. Our agenda today is as follows. First, we will hear the welcoming remarks from the Dean of the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences. Second, we will hear another welcoming remarks from the Rector of Universitas Indonesia. Third, we will listen to the public lecture by His Excellency President Jose Ramos-Horta, which includes a question and answer session. And lastly, for the closing, there will be a giving of a token of appreciation and a photo session. To begin the function, as the host of this public lecture, the Dean of the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences will deliver the first welcoming speech. To Professor Semiarto Aji Purwanto, the podium is yours.
His Excellency, Mr. Jose Manuel Ramos-Horta, the President of Timor Leste, Rector of Universitas Indonesia, Professor Ari Kunchoro, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May peace be upon you and God mercies and blessing for all of us. Shalom, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. First of all, on behalf of the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, Universitas Indonesia, I would like to extend our warmest greeting, warmest welcome to His Excellency, Mr. Jose Ramos-Horta, the President of Timor Leste, and the distinguished delegates, and I am deeply honored and privileged to be among the hosts of this important meeting. Today, we are gathering at the Yuwono Sudarsono Auditorium, an icon of the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences. The auditorium bears the name of Professor Yuwono Sudarsono. We have the pictures of him here, the former dean of this faculty, who was appointed as the Minister of Defense twice. Firstly, from 1999 to 2000, and secondly, from 2004 to 2009. And he also used to serve as the Minister of Environment and Minister of Education and Culture. As a prominent official of the government of the Republic Indonesia, Professor Yuwono Sudarsono have been involved in the challenging process of reconciliation between Indonesia and Timor Leste in the early days of Timor Leste's independence. This shows actually that we have been involved in developing better relationship between the two nations. We also proud to have prominent students from Timor-Leste graduated from our institution and contributing to the development of Timor-Leste and its relationship with Indonesia. Our faculty members and students are also actively involved in various activities, including research and community development, which aims to contribute to better relationship between the two neighbors. We are happy that despite the difficult history in the past, both nations successfully built close and friendly relations. This is an achievement that all of us can be proud of, since in many parts of the world, past conflict continue to hinder amicable and cooperative relationship between countries. It is indeed a long and winding road toward peace, as the title of this guest lecture says. But we can also be grateful to say that we have successfully walked on this path with a commitment to develop better future for the people of the Indonesia and Timor-Leste. While we haven't reached the end of this long and winding road, we walk with vision and confidence that we can tackle all the challenges along the way. Timor no Indonesia ne hanesan aihan ida. Maske sanak maketak, may behun no abut idadait tambana fatin iharai Asia, iharai Austronesia, iharai Polynesian. This is actually this is words that I have from my Timor friends, actually. They said that Timor and Indonesia are like trees. Even though we have different branches, but we still come from the same root, the same trees, because we are the same Asian people, we come from the same Austronesian ancestors. This vision and confidence have bear impressive result for Timor-Leste. This Asia's newest nation successfully developed a vibrant democracy. In terms of social development, Timor-Leste has climbed up more than 50 places in the 2019 United Nations Human Development Index, HDI, only in less than 20 years. It was even higher than some of the older countries in the region of Southeast Asia. At the same time, immense challenges in the different fronts remain. To overcome the challenges along the way and opening the path for better future for the people of both nations, I do believe that cooperation between Indonesia and Timor-Leste is essential. As a leading education and research institution in Indonesia, the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences is ready to contribute to these processes. We have 7 departments in this faculty. For social sciences, we have sociology, anthropology, criminology, and social welfare. And there are 2 departments for political sciences, namely political science and international relations. And in addition, we also have a strong department of communication science. And the faculty is confident that our experience and expertise could be useful for helping both nations to solve many social problems. At the same time, we are also looking forward to learning from the experience of Timor-Leste. In this context, we are thankful for the willingness of His Excellency Mr. Jose Ramos-Horta to share his precious insight in front of us, and we are looking forward to the lectures. Again, selamat datang di Visip UI, Solok Bodikmai, Bem-vindo. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Professor Aji. It was a very delighting welcome speech. Now is the time for us to listen to the second welcoming remarks from Director of Universitas Indonesia, Professor Ari Kunchoro. To Professor Ari, the podium is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. His Excellency, Mr. President Jose Ramos-Horta, Honorable Minister, Honorable Ambassador of the Democratic Republic of Timor Leste, and all distinguished delegates of Timor Leste, Honorable UI Vice Rector and Secretary for the University, Board of Trustee and Senate, the Dean of UI Faculty, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I express my sincere gratitude for His Excellency, President Jose Ramos-Horta, and all delegates for taking the time to visit our campus to deliver public lecture. We are very pleased to welcome you all here at our Depok campus at the Faculty of Social and Political Science. I would like to take this opportunity to briefly mention that Universitas Indonesia link to the people of Timor Leste is very special. We are close in geographical proximity, which creates new opportunities, especially in the field of education. Within the period of 2015 and 2019, we received a number of students from Timor-Leste in our master and doctorate degrees in a variety of study programs, including policy studies, engineering, economic and business, gender studies, and so on. As an education institution, we are very proud that Universitas Indonesia take part in their life experience as young talent who shape the future, not only for themselves, but also to the relation between Indonesia and Timor-Leste. Your Excellency, honorable ladies and gentlemen, in relation to that aspect, I would like to point out that education can be a contributing factor to a meaningful connection, in this case, between Indonesia and Timor-Leste. Let me take this opportunity to invite all of us here to discover more about areas where we can work together, areas that will benefit our nations from the angle of research and education, as well as cultural relations. Our faculty members are the powerhouses whose knowledge and expertise are invaluable in our endeavor. We believe that knowledge doesn't stop in the classroom. Our education and research artists to the community and the betterment of the life. For instance, during the pandemic, our researcher invented a mobile ventilator. We share our expertise with stakeholders to deliver policy brief in a wide range of issues on a regular basis, such as in governance, social, health, and security, and so on. Efforts also have been taken to address sustainability areas and renewable energy. Therefore, we invite our colleagues from Timor-Leste to conduct joint research activities with our researchers. This is because our task as higher education, Center of Research and Community Service Hub is not yet over. As the world today is facing many challenges, we must be transforming our approach in order to deliver improvement. To tackle the many global issues we are facing today, we are aiming to work our strategies in reorienting our vision into entrepreneurial university while improving capacity to maintain sustainability. This is why we believe we can swiftly navigate the future where research and innovation are robust and interconnected with all sectors. Together with the public and private sector, scientists and communities, nationally and internationally, we are responsible to advocate sustainability. It is one of the pressing issues we have to address urgently, building a better life and safety for society through the application of knowledge, converting resources into quality products and services without compromising the people and future generations to meet their needs. It will indeed require multidisciplinary efforts and multi-sector cooperation. Your Excellency and distinguished delegates, finally, please allow me to emphasize that let our links with Timor-Leste be part of driving forces in the joint effort of addressing the current global problem, as well as anticipating the future of unpredictability. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Professor Ari, for the enlightening speech. Ladies and gentlemen, now we come into the main highlight of this event, which is the public lecture that will be delivered by His Excellency, President Jose Ramos-Horta of Timor-Leste, whom is also a Nobel Peace Prize laureate. The theme of this lecture will be a long and winding road towards peace and resolving conflicts, lessons from Asia's newest nation. This public lecture will be moderated by Mr. Ali Abdullah Wibisono, PhD, a lecturer from the Department of International Relations, Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, Universitas Indonesia. To Mr. Ali, we invite you to come forward and the stage is yours.
His Excellency President of Timor-Leste, Jose Ramos-Horta, the Honorable Rector of Universitas Indonesia, Professor Ari Kunchoro, Dean of the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, Professor Semiarto Aji, all the distinguished guests and delegates, welcome to our public lecture event. This year, we celebrate the 20th anniversary of the independence of Timor-Leste. A lot of political and economic developments have taken place in this youngest democracy in Asia, as well as, of course, conflict resolution. Timor-Leste is robust democracy with fierce political competition between its political parties. It has gradually progressed towards achieving peace, stability, and economic development and towards becoming the 11th member of ASEAN. During its 20 years of independence, Indonesia has been a good friend to Timor-Leste and has been promoting economic development and diversification of its nascent manufacturing industry, and a strong supporter of Timor-Leste's candidacy as ASEAN's 11th member. To talk about all these matters and beyond, already among us at the moment is President of Timor-Leste, Jose Ramos-Horta. He needs no introduction, but I will introduce him anyway because it is my job as a moderator. President Ramos-Horta is one of the founding fathers of Timor-Leste, of course. He already served as president from 2007 to 2012. Previously, he was Minister of Foreign Affairs from 2002 to 2006 and Prime Minister from 2006 to 2007. He is a co-recipient of 1996 Nobel Peace Prize for working towards a just and peaceful solution to the conflict in East Timor. Mr. Ramos-Horta has received numerous honorary doctorate degrees from universities in Brazil, the United States, Australia, and Portugal. He is also a recipient of several human rights prizes and awards. And most importantly, last May, he won a landslide victory against 15 other candidates for the presidency of Timor-Leste. Yet again, no small feat there. This afternoon, he will deliver a speech titled A Long and Winding Road Towards Peace and Resolving Conflicts, Lessons from Asia's Newest Nation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome President of the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste, His Excellency, Dr. Jose Ramos-Horta. The podium is yours, Mr. President, please. Podium, sir.
Please be seated. Good afternoon. Thank you for giving me the honor of being in such a great university. I have given lectures in maybe over 100 universities around the world, but in Indonesia, this is the only, I think, second time. First time in Gajah Mada, 3 years ago. And Universitas Indonesia, very famous. So it's a great honor to be here. As the protocol has mentioned, a number of my Timorese compatriots are here, and most of them studied in Indonesia. And our former Minister of Education, Dulce, she's over there, former Foreign Minister, former Foreign Minister of Timor-Leste, who studied in Bali, law, and then he did PhD in Canberra, ANU. Then another former student in Indonesia in Jesuit seminaries, Martinho Guzmão, PhD. And in front row, members of the National Parliament, representative of most of the parties in the Parliament, and then moving here, Foreign Minister of Timor-Leste. You didn't study here in I study also. No. Yeah. And Benedito Freitas, former Minister of Education also, ambassador in Beijing, also studied in Indonesia, our ambassador in Jakarta, and our Minister of Telecommunication, Transport and Telecommunication. And I cannot forget he's, oh yeah, sorry, Mariano Savino, one of our young leaders. He also studied in Indonesia, but he was too busy doing politics in Indonesia instead of studying. But he contributed enormously to the liberation of Timor-Leste, together with the young Indonesians who did your May Revolution because it coincidentally it happened in May in 98, like the French May Revolution. And the Minister of Agriculture, also he studied in Indonesia. And many others, including a niece of mine who was a best student in ITB. She just completed her master's degree a few months ago, top of the class in industrial design. And I have to apologize to Universitas Indonesia because she, my niece, Maria Zinha, took part in a national competition among universities. I was told 5. And she beat the participant from Universitas Indonesia. And, so I apologize for that. I had no responsibility for that. Great privilege to be back in Indonesia. I'm not new to Indonesia. First time ever I came to this great country of yours was in June '74. No money, little money, traveling from Dili to Kupang to see an old friend, Governor Brigadier General Altari. I don't go into long history how I knew Altari. And I went there to seek his advice. I was coming to Jakarta, his support to introduce me to people. That was the beginning of our long journey towards independence. Governor Altari told his security assistant, Luis Taoling, you go with Ramos to Jakarta. Don't let any bad people influence him. Well, but when I got to Jakarta, Luis Taoling, tempted by Jakarta, he disappeared. I was left alone. And I traveled around Jakarta in Becak, and very rarely taxis. When I think back that I traveled many places in Jakarta in Becak, I thought I was crazy. And I could have had, and in motorbike, in a scooter, I could have had an accident and no one would knew who I was because I had no documentation with me. I stayed in a lodgement, but I met with Agus Parenquan, journalist with Compass, and with another great journalist, Sabang Siagian. At the time, he was with Sinar Harapan, with, God, I forgot. And then I met with Jod Arijondro. Tempo magazine had just started only 1 year earlier before I met them. They were in a poor house somewhere. And first time in my life I was cover of a magazine was in Tempo, June '74. Tempo put me in the cover. And I met with Pak Malik. My first meet, I met him 3 times. The first meeting, I went on to his office in a scooter. And can you imagine, I was going to meet such an important person, and I went in a scooter. He was very friendly, very charming. And we talked about Timor Leste's Portuguese Timor at that time, it was known future. So my relationship with Indonesia goes back a long, long time. Other Timorese, more well-known than me, also had long history of a relationship with Indonesia. She also studied in Indonesia, but in a famous university called Sipinang University. He graduated summa cum laude. That Shanana Guzmao. And many other Timorese, Fernando Lasama Araújo, I think he was there also, João Câmara, and a few other, Budiman, Indonesian young activist, also was in Sipinang because he was supporting the Timorese. And so Shanana, PhD, summa cum laude from Sipinang. And so great historical, cultural, personal, emotional relationships. relationship that then led to Indonesians themselves ending the Suharto era. The beginning was difficult, traumatic in Indonesia. 98, 99, 2001, you had the problem of Tanjung Priok, you had before that Tanjung Priok, you had a problem of Ambon, Kalimantan, Bugis, Dayak fight, and we had a problem of Timor. So Indonesia was facing problems in so many fronts. But great leaders come during great challenges, and B.J. Habibie showed that. He was instrumental in carrying on with the demands of the young people, or the demands of the revolution to lead Indonesia towards democracy. Similar to Gorbachev in Russia, Soviet Union at the time, similar to Frederick de Klerk, Mandela in South Africa, and many other leaders who in times of history seized the opportunity and led their country's people into democracy and freedom. 20 years later, Timor Leste is an oasis of tranquility in a region, Southeast Asia, that has its own dramatic challenges. Setbacks in Myanmar, and serious challenges South China Sea, very dangerous. I personally think that one of the most risky areas today is South China Sea, not a very large geographic area, but heavily militarized now with other forces in the region and beyond trying to challenge the Chinese presence in South China Sea. So you increase military presence, fighter jets, Navy, and so on. And conflicts happen often in history because of miscalculation or accidental firing of a missile. And then all hell can break loose. Yeah, we have the challenge of the Korean Peninsula, Taiwan. Who knows how Taiwan is going to be resolved? Then you have the decades of tension between India and China, unresolved borders, Pakistan and India. And as if all the problems in the world are not enough, Yemen, Syria, and never ending, Afghanistan, never ending, then Russia invaded Ukraine. A few weeks before, I gave a talk, Zoom talk, with a number of military, diplomatic, political strategies in Europe, in the US, and I was asked a question about Ukraine. Russia had already amassed more than 100,000 troops surrounding Ukraine. And I said, I do not believe he is going to invade Ukraine. He is playing brinkmanship. Brinkmanship is a tactic used by whatever power that threaten to go to the brink, but that do not actually walk over the brink in the expectation, in the hope or calculation that the other side will be scared enough and back down. Well, the other side, Ukraine, Western European countries, the United States, they didn't blink. So Putin had a choice: retreat, lose face, or attack Ukraine. So I said at the time, the problem with brinkmanship is that sometimes you go to the abyss because the other side is not going to blink. And this is what happened. So we have this devastating war that impacting on us, impacting on Timor Leste. On Timor Leste, how we impact? Usually I go to some small shops in Dili, like most Timorese, you buy Bimol. Everybody buy Bimol in Timor-Leste. And I go to buy that to give to some poor families in different parts of the city, of the country. I buy it myself. I enjoy going to the shop. And I remember buying 5 liters for $4.60. And after the Ukraine war, the price skyrocketed to $13, $14, $15. Now it came back down to $11. It should have come down much more, but the vendors, the commerçants, the traders, well, they got used to. They like the idea of selling for $15, for $14, $13. They are not going to bring down further down. So the price might stay on there. But that shows how Indonesia changed from the nightmares of the post-Suharto era to such an important global player, whereby Pakistan, Bangladesh, all over Europe, the Germans, Latin Americans, all pleading with President Jokowi, please allow cooking oil to their country. As I read that, I saw the extraordinary transformation just through that particular example. And Timor-Leste came a long way, along with Indonesia. Indonesia became a dynamic democracy. I have to apologize in comparing with Timor-Leste, according to Freedom House in Washington and the Economist, Timor-Leste is #1 democracy in Southeast Asia, Indonesia #2. And of course, some cynics, when I mentioned Timor-Leste is #1 democracy, someone said, well, with those kind of neighbors, you have it not difficult to be #1. Or when I said we are #1, someone again with sense of humor, and who is #2? And I said, state secret. I'm not commenting. But the reality is Indonesia is a shining example of leadership, of transformation. No accident that it is chairing as G20, everybody converging from around the world. And I commend the leadership of President Jokowi in going to Ukraine and Russia. He's the only global leader who has been to both countries in conflict. Some go only to Ukraine to lend support to Ukraine, others go only to Moscow. And so President Jokowi is from distance, is able to, so far, to engage at least the two sides in dialogue. How far it will go, one doesn't know, because the road towards peace, resolving conflict is a long, winding one. There is rarely a straight line. A straight line only when one side managed to defeat the other side militarily, impose a surrender, like the Americans during World War II on Nazi Germany or on Japan. Rare in history, a conflict ends with a surrender by military means. It ends politically, diplomatically, through negotiation, through face saving, and so on. We have come a long way today. The Timor-Leste is an oasis in tranquility, of tranquility. I've been to 135 countries in my lifetime, some doing specific missions for the United Nations after I left office, others just to observe the situation sent by the Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, or by Secretary General Antonio Guterres. After I left office as president in 2012, first Africa, in terms of, because to resolve a conflict in Guinea-Bissau, I could not just focus on Guinea-Bissau. I had to deal with all other countries directly or indirectly involved, or who direct interest or indirect interest in the conflict in Guinea-Bissau. So I went to Nigeria several times to meet with President Goodluck Jonathan, Senegal many times, Guinea, Conakry, Mali, although Mali had its own problems, Morocco, to Cote d'Ivoire. The president of Cote d'Ivoire was the president of the West African Regional Organization, and had also to deal with France that had direct interest there. So a conflict sometimes have two parties. Internally, many parties look at Syria, more than 100 armed groups in Syria. Yemen, endless groups in Syria. Sometimes more clear cut, there are only two. In the war Iraq-Iran, there were two parties, two strong leaders. After more than 8 years of conflict, more than 1 million people dead in the Iran-Iraq war, the two strong leaders decided to end the war. And they decided and the war ended. But when you are in a situation like Syria, with more than 100 groups fighting the regime and so many external interventions from the neighbors, from Russia, from the United States, from Saudi Arabia, Turkey, no best mediator in the world were able to resolve till today. First mediator was Kofi Annan. He was already former Secretary General, appointed by Ban Ki-moon to resolve the conflict. He lasted only 2 months, he gave up. Then Ban Ki-moon appointed Lakhdar Brahimi from Algeria, consummate diplomat, good friend of mine. I call him my mentor. And he ironically, you would like to know, he was the first representative of the Algerian National Liberation Front in Jakarta when he was 20 years old. He was the youngest representative of the Algerians fighting for independence against France. And he became one of the best UN peacemakers. He lasted 3 years, was not able to resolve the conflict, and still today. And so a war, a conflict, sometimes, yes, black and white. Sometimes it involves all kinds of issues, including emotional, personal, ego, pride, territorial ambition, the desire of a country to impose its preeminence in a region, in this case, like Russia, doesn't want to lose influence there in the region. So it went into Syria absolutely forcefully to save the regime, because it would have been devastating for Russia's credibility, particularly when Russia and China, on the debate in the UN Security Council involving the case of Libya, Russia and China agreed to abstain and agree on a no-fly zone over Benghazi. Well, the no-fly zone, supposedly purely humanitarian, became regime change in Libya. Using the no-fly zone, they bombed Gaddafi, killed Gaddafi, and so Russia and China, suspicions of that, no longer cooperating with the Security Council on Syria, particularly Russia. So you have this endless conflict. And in addition, now we have Ukraine. In contrast, back to Timor Leste, after 20 years, if you look at the human development indicators, sometimes I find it interesting that some in ASEAN think that Timor-Leste is not yet fully prepared to join ASEAN. But when you look at the human development indicators, Timor-Leste began in 2002 with life expectancy of less than 60. Today, life expectancy of a Timorese, a woman, 71.6. Myanmar, much older country, 60 years independent, one of the richest countries in the region, maybe even richer than Indonesia in terms of strategic resources. And yet, its life expectancy is 66 point something. In terms of doctors, ratio of doctors, according to WHO, Timor-Leste has a 0.8 per 1,000 people. Myanmar has 0.7. So Timor-Leste has more doctors per capita than Myanmar. We have a functioning democracy. In 20 years, we never miss one single day of our constitutionally mandated electoral times. On the clock, a president change, a government change. Of course, government take longer, but elections are held, then negotiations for coalition arrangement, and so on. We have zero political violence, zero ethnic or religious-based violence, no organized crime. Maybe, I would concede, maybe we don't have organized crime because generally we are a bit, in Timor-Leste, a bit disorganized. So our criminals are not organized. There was someone I know in Timor-Leste. He's from Hong Kong. He came to Timor-Leste, bought laptops and everything to set up an office. 2 days later, his office was robbed. They clean up everything. He came to talk to me, obviously completely stressed, upset. And I said, did you report to the police? He said, yes, I did. Don't worry. In 2 days, they will find it. Well, 2 days later, he came to me very happy that they recover everything. Well, I told you, our robbers are very disorganized. And instead of staying quiet, and they start boasting in the neighborhoods, oh, I got this laptop, oh, I got this PC. And the police, we have a very good community police, and they over here, and they know already where. So anyway, our little country, after 24 years of relationship with Indonesia, we have the best possible relationship between two countries in Asia, Indonesia and Timor-Leste, exemplary in a post-conflict situation that we reach out to each other. And Indonesia has shown even greater. There is a French expression that I never able to find in English or any other language. Hauteur, hauteur, mean high. It shows its highness in the sense that it is not small like some individuals or countries. When you are too small in terms of political or human stature, you tend to seek revenge. Indonesia has shown its hauteur, it's higher than mundane feelings of revenge, of anger, of jealousy, or whatever. Indonesia, post-Suharto, post-Timor independence, could have ignored Timor-Leste, at least turn its back. No, it has not. Extended a hand of friendship to us, responded to our hand of friendship, reconciliation. We met halfway and build the best relationship between two countries in Asia. An example for other conflict situations like in Balkans or in Northeast Asia, or in the Middle East, where after generations of conflict and tension, not able to reach out to each other. The winding road to peace in Timor-Leste, as I mentioned, absolutely peaceful, no political violence, no organized crime, no religious tensions, overwhelming majority Catholic, small Muslim community, Timorese, and the individuals from Indonesia who live in there. There are thousands of Indonesians living in Timor-Leste, and the people from other small religious groups, particularly Protestant, but also other small groups like Jehovah's Witness and others. We hope to join ASEAN by the end of next year. Indonesia is very supportive, but it will require a collective decision of ASEAN leaders in response to the several missions that have been to Timor-Leste, ASEAN missions, on the three pillars of ASEAN. They will recommend to, and I presume they will recommend that Timor-Leste is fully prepared, maybe with some reservations or recommendations in regard to the economics pillar, but who can be, who in Southeast Asia can say is absolutely clear and predictable with all the legal institutions, arbitration institutions, transparency, integrity in the economic sector. Well, sometimes it looks like we Timorese have to reach first heaven, the perfection of heaven, and then reach ASEAN. And the road to ASEAN goes through the perfection of heaven. And that's why it's taking so long for us to finally be admitted as a, be it in November 2023. We just came from a meeting with President Jokowi. I have to say, absolutely pleased with the substance of the meetings, with the Indonesia engagement. We have explored many new ideas on how to develop more the economic trade relation between Timor-Leste and Indonesia, how to facilitate better people's movement, Timorese students coming to Indonesia with, ideally, I told President Jokowi, ideally would be Timorese students can just walk into Indonesia and go to a university. You don't need any visa. So visa between Indonesia and Timor-Leste should be just abolished. And particularly for students, for youth. And we have thousands of Timorese who have graduated here. Indonesia language, Bahasa Indonesia is still widely spoken in Timor-Leste. Your televisions are very popular in Timor-Leste. Music, musicians, artists. And as I was sitting here earlier before the meeting started, and I received this message from a famous Indonesian actress. She says, "Hello, Mr. President. Welcome back to the brothers' land. It's me, the most sweet actress in the world, Christine Hakim." And one purpose of me being here with you today, and besides my state visit, I would like to see every 3 months, every 6 months, a group delegation of Indonesian academics, intellectuals, writers, artists, movie stars, visiting us, visiting Timor-Leste. Because we come to Indonesia by the thousands. In Timor-Leste visitors are the 4th largest in the world visit to Indonesia. The official statistic show Timor Leste the fourth country with the most visitors to Indonesia. You wouldn't believe how many Timorese come to Indonesia in a month. Can be as high as 100,000. That's official statistic. And that was pre-COVID up to 2018. I saw the statistic. Thank you for listening to me. I reserve more concrete issues for the question time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't think I will be able to summarize your speech because there were many topics in there and then it's very engaging. I think we're going to open a question and answer session, Mr. President, and I have been informed by the committee that you would only wish to interact more with the students. And so I apologize, but I will only give opportunity to students. All right, then can we have the first three questions, please? Raise your hand. Yeah. Go ahead. Introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Kenzi. I'm a political science student from University of Indonesia, and it's very glad to have you here. My question would be, as we know, one way to resolve conflict is to join forces with like-minded nations in a civilized manner to discuss common issues and find common solutions, which of course brings us in this context to the issue that you have mentioned earlier, which is Timor's application to join ASEAN. I'm sure many of us Indonesians would happily and warmly welcome you into our ASEAN family, but unfortunately there are still some people out there who are opposed to the idea. Now, we would like to know, Mr. President, how would you plan to convince those who are opposed to the idea that Timor's joining ASEAN is the right step to benefit not only just Timor, but also regional peace and security? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenzi. What department are you from?
I'm from political science.
Oh, political science. So
much,
you're
yeah.
undergraduate student from political science. All right. Can we have the next question, please? So we have first three questions, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. His Excellency, Mr. Jose Ramos-Horta, President of Timor Leste, and all delegate. My name is Sarah Nelson, and I am an undergraduate student of Sociology Department in this faculty. So my question, first of all, I would like to welcome and thank you for coming to Universitas Indonesia, and it's an honor for us to welcome you to our faculty. As we all know, Indonesia and Timor Leste have a long history. Seeing this, cooperation between Indonesia and Timor Leste is important. So my question is, as a neighboring state, how does Timor Leste view its future relations to Indonesia? And what is Timor Leste's expectation, especially in the economic cooperation within its surrounding like NTT? Thank you.
I think I got that question, yes. All right. Perhaps the last one for this session. Someone at the corner. Yeah, right corner. Go ahead. You have to move forward.
Thank you so much, Your Excellencies, Mr. President Ramos-Horta. My name is Fadil. I'm a postgraduate international relations in the University of Indonesia. I have a simple question now. But first of all, I want to say happy anniversary for Timor Leste. And my question is for security. Like we know, the last of 20th century is a big challenge for third world country or periphery country in the world. Economic crisis, economic collapse, new countries born in Asia. And then, like we know, after the pandemic happens, that's changed all of the situations, even that impacted for human rights, that impact for all of the aspect on this all of the board. But we have a new challenge after the conflicts we have, like Ukraine and Russia. And I think Ukraine and Russia should learn how Indonesia and Timor Leste, they still stabilize their security to still instabilize area. And I think how the Timor Leste see the AUKUS as the new idea to protect our regions from any threats from out of this region, and how Timor Leste see the foreigner actors like the superpower countries to contribute to protect either in Timor Leste or in Indonesia. I think that's my question. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So about ASEAN, relationship with Indonesia and AUKUS. What do you think about that, Mr. President?
Those who have some reservation or skepticism about Timor-Leste joining ASEAN, one reservation is Timor-Leste inability for lack of financial economic resources, for lack of human resources, to live up to the responsibilities as a member of ASEAN. That is entirely legitimate and entirely understandable. Yes, of course, 10 years ago, Timor-Leste was far more fragile, very weak in our state institutions and so on. We are all animated, motivated, but being motivated is not enough. The reality was, yes, we did have a very severe problems of qualified human resources, a very weak civil administration, judiciary, a new parliamentary system, new government, new defense force, new police force, all of that, which is normal in a country that came just out of a conflict. The reality of dozens of countries, maybe 50, 60, 70 countries in the world that have been independent already 50 years. They still some, even worse than Timor-Leste after 50 years. And I just mentioned Myanmar, life expectancy 66 point, and Timor-Leste for women is 71.6 or 71.2. That part I totally understand. The part of eligibility in terms of the geography is, of course, is completely unacceptable. And there was no question about that. Timor-Leste, membership in ASEAN require two fundamental criteria. One, be in the footprint of Southeast Asia. You have to be a member of a regional organization, you have to belong to the region. Sri Lanka, Bangladesh cannot be member of Southeast of ASEAN because they are part of South Asia. One of the most inoperational regional organizations is precisely the South Asia regional group because of conflict between Pakistan and India in particular, always blocking any substantive initiative from the group. So to be part of Southeast Asia, you have to be in the footprint of Southeast Asia and cannot belong to other regional organizations. For instance, Papua New Guinea applied to join ASEAN. As I know, Bangladesh did apply, Sri Lanka years ago, but they are not eligible because either not part of the region or belong to another regional organization. So Timor Leste is the only one that fit these two criteria. On the human capacity, yeah, we have made that entirely understandable. The last 10 years, we have worked hard. We have sent hundreds of Timorese to study abroad, besides studying in our own country, in our best universities. A scholarship program that was set up by our government, Mr. Shanano Guzman's government at that time, beginning 2007, 2008, called Human Capital Development Fund, about $30 million a year. In one single year, I personally, because I happened to be in Thailand at the time, 100 Timorese arrived in Thailand to go to 4 best universities in Thailand, including the Asia Institute of Technology. In one go, 100 arrived in the Philippines, all for selected best universities there. Indonesia is a special case because many hundreds came anyway already with or without any special program. But Indonesia was also covered by that special program, selected universities, jointly selected by the government and the universities in Indonesia. More than 200 went to Australia, several hundred in Portugal, Brazil. So in the last 20 years, we have hundreds of Timorese with master's degrees in Timor Leste, many universities around the world, including United States, China. We have Timorese who graduated in Chinese universities. Young Timorese are very good with languages. 6 months, 1 year, enough to study, to understand Mandarin, to join even a medical school in China. 6 months, enough to go into a Korean university in South Korea. 6 months, 1 year, enough to join a Chinese Navy Academy, because we have had people went to the Japanese Navy Academy. So we have you know, we are not Indonesia, we are not Singapore, we are not Malaysia, but we have you know, so I believe the main legitimate objection concerned human rights is how we persuade them. Many ASEAN missions have been to Timor-Leste. They have made effort, they have been there. With COVID, there were online discussions, seminars. Right now, there is a mission in Timor-Leste, ASEAN mission. A few days ago, there was a previous one, been there. So that's how you persuade, by their observation in the country. And then, of course, there is the political strategic calculation. Why Myanmar, Cambodia, and other ASEAN countries, not the founders, not the first 5, the others who came, why they joined immediately without any preparation? Well, either they are embraced by ASEAN, by Indonesia, by Philippines, by Thailand, or they will be embraced by China. So ASEAN leaders, wise enough, let's not wait. Let's embrace them. And embracing with bringing in problems of, you know, all these countries. Some came out of conflict, some still in conflict, but strategic necessity dictated quick decision. So that's, I believe that we have persuaded some of these individuals that was skeptical and totally understandable. Second was what, sorry? We want only expanded relationship. We have a great relationship all these years. We need more substantive Indonesian private sector investment in Timor-Leste. President Jokowi, as a successful entrepreneur, capture what is important in the relationship with Timor-Leste. Timor-Leste, by virtue of our status as an LDC, least developed countries, we have a tariff-free access to European Union market. We have a tariff-free with the United States. There's a list of, I think, 4,000 items on the list that Timor-Leste can export tariff-free to the US. And China also, we do have some of this privilege, Australia, New Zealand, but the only thing we export so far to, particularly to the United States, is coffee. We don't export anything else. So if Indonesian companies were to set up business, manufacturing, some food processing industry, clothing, textile, particularly along the border, that would be President Jokowi's preference and our preference along the border. Well, we would create thousands of jobs in Timor-Leste and benefit these Indonesian companies that would export to Europe, or as long as it has a majority Timorese component, and the component is workers. Obviously, the whole purpose is to have employment. That's one way, but there are other areas of Indonesia's support to Timor-Leste. I mentioned education, easier access, easier movement of Timorese coming to Indonesia. Timorese, Indonesia do not pay visa on arrival in Timor-Leste. Visa is, you don't pay a cent. Timorese pay $30 to enter Indonesia. And I don't know who negotiated that agreement. And not me. And the minister said not she. President Jokowi himself was shocked. Who negotiated this agreement? But I cannot say he promised to change, but he was going to look at it, because I don't want to misread someone's position, but he was literally shocked. So there is no limit to expanding Timor-Leste-Indonesia relationship in terms of trade, in terms of investment, student exchange, sport, culture. As I mentioned, I personally, I intend to have a stream of Indonesian visitors coming to Timor-Leste in the course of the year. Every year, the same. And I think we cover everything. Yeah, the Indo-Pacific became a new geographic or strategic concept. It is obviously, it is aimed at China. I do not wish to read too much in the Indo-Pacific partners' mind, but I would say only is that judging from the bad experience of some European countries, NATO with Russia, better to work with China, and China also has to understand and work with its neighbors, a superpower, a country that wishes to be a superpower, a legitimate superpower, and China is economic, financial superpower, a military superpower, although not yet of the dimension of the United States, but it is. Well, it has also to learn from history that empires, superpowers also melt, collapse. in the face of rejection by its own people, rejection by neighbors. So it is China that has to, rather than thinking, and I'm not saying they're thinking, but rather than thinking about hard power, better approach his relationship with his neighbors and the world through soft power diplomacy. Yes, it is entitled to a navy, strong an army as it wishes to protect the sea routes, because becoming a big international trader, why UK dominated England, dominated the seas, why United States? To protect its vast overseas trade empire. So it's natural. When the problem of pirates happened in the Indian Ocean, the first time the Chinese decided to have a presence in the Indian Ocean. So they set up a base in Djibouti to support their Navy vessels in the Indian Ocean, but they were completely alone. They were totally, they realized, they had no way of protecting their thousands of the Chinese ships that go to Africa, Latin America, trade back and forth. And becoming a global power, financial, trade, and economic power, and with it some global military presence as well, it's the one that has to reassure everyone that it is not a threat to anyone, that China is actually wants every country in Asia to develop, and that is to benefit of China. China needs a stable Southeast Asia region, needs a stable, prosperous Central Asia. It needs a stable, prosperous Europe, because we look back when in the decades of Chinese development, well, it developed thanks to trade deficit with the United States, trade deficit with Europe. The only reverse situation was China had deficits with ASEAN countries. ASEAN countries exported more to China than imported during those years. So, and we have the problem in South China Sea. Well, it is a situation that China cannot win under international law. It cannot try to reinvent international law. It cannot. Each of us, coastal state, is entitled to territorial waters, contiguous zone, and EEZ, exclusive economic zone, 200 miles, and when it overlaps, median line, and no more. So China's 9-dash line that goes 1,000 miles just because 1,000 years ago, some Chinese fisherman was on a rock. Well, and but ideally, because China says its military installation in South China Sea is for protection of fishermen, for weather, etc. Well, that being the case, then why not an agreement with all other claimant states for a joint management of the area? Yes, with some military facilities for rescue effort, but joint. Maybe look at the Antarctica agreement, where many different powers are there. No one claim Antarctica. They all scientists are there. Well, look at how we protect. Of course, China is not going to be impressed with this proposition of mine, because unlike United States, which to the north has Alaska, which it bought from Russia for $16 million. To the south, it has to the north, it has Alaska, it has Canada. To the south, it has Mexico. To east and west, it has vast oceans unimpeded. Well, China has a much more narrow, so a superpower with very limited access to the oceans. That's why it's trying to impose a fait accompli in South China Sea. How to resolve that? Is there any remedy, prevention remedy? no idea. As I said earlier, it can be a case of miscalculation, misfiring, and then all hell break loose.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's interesting that you have this vision, geopolitical vision that understands China's feeling of being threatened, of being blocked in South China Sea. And that at the same time, though, I think the best solution is that we have to have better maritime security cooperation, securing our own seas, so we don't have to rely on either the US or China, because these two superpowers are too busy with their own competition with each other. Okay, do we have second session for Q&A? Or just one? Just one more? Okay. Do we have one more session of Q&A? Do we have any more students? One there, and then a lady at the back, and then another one over there. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for your coming to our university. I'm Afid. I'm from student of international relations. If I'm not mistaken, that this is your first visiting to abroad after your second presidency. So why, Mr. President, you choose Indonesia as your first agenda, your first international political agenda after you were inaugurated as a president in May for your second presidency, and how important is Indonesia to Timor Leste and to your presidency right now, and in what aspects of that? Thank you.
Next question. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency and distinguished guests and honorable audience. My name is Indira. I'm from the Department of Criminology of this faculty. My question is simple. As a Nobel Peace Prize laureate, how does Your Excellency measure peace? Earlier, you mentioned that the lack of organized crime in Timor Leste, lack of ethnic conflicts and war were mentioned as measure of peace. However, we cannot deny that there are still class and gender conflicts, both in Timor Leste and sadly in Indonesia as well. Despite current measures, these two problems are still prevalent in both of our countries. Like, does Your Excellency and the current government of Timor Leste have a working plan to eradicate both class and gender conflicts, such as violence against women in Timor Leste? Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, Mr. President, Jose Ramos-Horta, and friends in the audience. Thanks for the opportunity. My name is Duta. I am an undergraduate sociology student from this faculty. I would like to thank you for coming to our campus and for giving such an interesting speech. Congratulations for Timor-Leste for celebrating 20 years as an independent state and for achieving great progress in multiple social development indicators. I am interested about your mentions that Timor-Leste is running a democratic system with the last election participated by more than 15 candidates. There is an amazing fact, and I think in terms of democracy, Timor-Leste is doing better than Indonesia, since in the past 3 elections, Indonesian people keep receiving the same candidates again and again. Now, my question regarding Timor-Leste is, Timor-Leste has a lot of different languages and ethnic groups. How does Timor-Leste exercise an effective nation-building process? What are the factors that unite the people of Timor-Leste to build the country as a unified community? That is my question. Thank you, Mr. President and Mr. Moderator.
Well, in the relation to the first statement question about gender and the class violence, no? Well, I presume you refer to domestic violence, violence against women. Yes, it is widespread based on the data done by many institutions like UNICEF and others. To combat that, already 10 years ago, the parliament passed and a law was promulgated that domestic violence is a public crime, so subjected to courts and not to family resolutions or whatever. And everybody engaged in reducing domestic violence and violence in general, whether it is the parliament, the government, civil society, our international partners, very active. Gender inequality, and there are some aspects to it that I do not agree much with some of the international studies done. In our parliament has one of the highest representation of women. And while some parliaments in the world, democratic, so-called democratic parliaments, have a very little say, the executive is really in charge. Our parliament is super active, really have a tremendous input on the budget process, on decision. And there are many women in our national parliament by imposition of each political party that every third candidate has to be a woman. Then we have members of government, quite a few prominent women are members of government. In the judiciary, in the Supreme Court, Court of Appeal, women. More and more women entrepreneurs, but still very low. The weakest part is in the civil administration. You find very few women at the top of the public administration, wherever it is. But there is not an active, deliberate exclusion of women. Sometimes it just like almost, I would say, force of habit. One calls a meeting, you want to select women. Those who turn up are almost all men. And in my office, President, I said, I want absolute gender equality. Well, it has not been easy to realize that because there are too many men that show up. So it is, well, it's in the universities, you look at the report of universities, women perform better in universities, perform better in medicine, in math. And I have to say, very, very proud that in an international math competition involving 40 countries or 50 countries, 50,000 people, one Timorese student came fourth in the world, ahead of China, because I immediately went to look where China was, because China is always the top in math. I was so happy when he was ahead of the Chinese, ahead of many Europeans, US. So, anyway, but that was a boy, a teenager. But generally, the best performing in medicine, math are women. And we will continue to battle to create absolute gender parity. If more women than men, yeah, it's okay. I totally agree with that. Because traditionally, historically, always more men. So if we can reach a situation where there are an imbalance in that more women, be it, let them govern for a while, because we have had our chance of misgoverning for thousands of years. But there is no such thing as gender conflict or social gender and class-based conflict. No, I don't think that is accurate.
One, Mr. President, is why did you choose Indonesia as your first destination for your state visit in your second term as president? Yeah, why choose Indonesia?
When I was foreign minister in 2001, 2002, I advised the first president of Timor Leste at the time, Mr. Xanana Guzmão, all very familiar, I presume, with Mr. Xanana Guzmão, and the prime minister at the time, Dr. Mari Alkatiri, who has a lot of family in Indonesia. The name Alkatiri is famous in Indonesia. He was prime minister at the time, and I told them, two countries must be our first visit upon the president taking office, the prime minister taking office, Indonesia and Australia. Mere fact that our two closest neighbors and very important ones. And so Mr. Xanana Guzmão came here in June, early June 2002. He was sworn in as president in May 20. June, he was here. I accompanied him at that time. And Dr. Alkatiri also came soon after as prime minister. So it is obvious that the two countries, Australia and Indonesia, are extremely important to Timor-Leste, and we will continue that effort. But so are all other ASEAN countries, and so are Northeast Asia countries, Korea, South Korea, Japan, and China. These are the absolute priority. But we also have exceptionally good relations with the European Union as a whole, bilateral with several, but very strong with the European Commission and with the United States. We have had great relationship from day one with Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and then came Barack Obama, and we survived Donald Trump. And we are doing very well with Joe Biden. And this morning in Delhi, our government signed a very important agreement with the United States, the so-called Millennium Challenge Account Corporation, more than $400 million grant by the United States, focusing on infrastructure, water sanitation, water treatment, and education with the setting up of a special teachers training school. And in the next 2-3 years, Timor-Leste is going to have one of the fastest internet in the world. We have a submarine cable coming from Port Hedland, Australia, one submarine cable coming from Alor, and one from Atambua to Motahain, Motahain to Batu Gade, and so 3 or 4 different connectivities that connect us. We have a new port, international port, container port, that will be inaugurated in November. The Americans are rebuilding our old airport in Baucau, an international standard airport. The US is rebuilding, separate from the current agreement. And the government also has committed funding with some support from Japan for renovating, expanding the Dili International Airport. So the next few years will be tremendous economic activity in Timor-Leste. And that will And I have to say, I have visited many of our departments like Central Bank, Ministry of Finance, the port. There are many women engineers there. Some of the briefings I have received come from women top Timorese economists, scientists, and so on. We don't see them much on television or the day-to-day, but when you go to the workplace, there they are, architects, engineers, economists, business administration, and so on.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, there's one last question from that session. It was what was the most challenging aspect of nation building and state building in East Timor, in Timor-Leste, given that there are multiple ethnicities, probably different approaches and religion?
Sorry, forgot. When we started in 2002, we had to do a number of, undertake a number of initiatives simultaneously. Everything was urgent. Everything was a priority. One was healing of the wounds of the society, national reconciliation. That was one of the greatest success of our leadership. And when I say our, maybe I exclude myself, I say our, mean my colleagues, my compatriots, not only the political leaders, but civil society, religious groups, traditional leaders, everybody involved in that. After the conflict, with so many Timorese involved in the conflict, it was not black and white. It was not so simple to say all the violence in one side. No, it was, so this was absolutely critical. And thanks to Mr. Xanana Guzmão, who himself was guerrilla fighter, 17 years in the mountains, 8 years in Sipinang, but also supported by all other leaders. There was not a single Timorese political leader, military, who did not support this approach. Reconciliation among Timorese. No prosecuting anyone. And reaching out to Indonesia. I have to say, the very first time I came to Jakarta was in November, October 99. I was so surprised. When Mr. Xanana, he hugged a military gentleman. The way they hug each other was almost like they must have been fighting together. And, you know, as in same trench. And then when I asked, who is this general you just, oh, he was the one who captured me. And he was hugging everybody. And I have to say, I was a bit confused. You know? Adam Damiri was there, Kiki Sianakri was there, everyone. So this tremendous capacity, vision of Mr. Xanana, but you are not alone. You are supported by Mr. Alkatiri, Mr. Luwolo, Taumat, all the fighters. No, and this is, and the church, this is the road. This was condition, sine qua non condition to create the first basis of peace and to enable us to work on the institutions of the state that did not exist. When, how to start the judiciary, public administration, a functioning civil service, with whom, you know, a police force, an army, transition from few hundred guerrilla fighters with the experience of fighters in the mountains to a modern professional army, etc., etc. Well, it has not been easy, and the process continuing. But it is our consolation and pride is that in the midst of all these fragilities, some setbacks, we have been able to allow our people, create conditions for our people to vote according to the Constitution every 5 years. Now democracy, last year, extended all the way down to village level. We created the municipalities and local authority, local government. So these are the institutions of the state building that we talk about. And this is a long-term process. It will take much longer before we say our institutions are solid. There are no going to be any threat to these institutions. We are now in the process of creating the Supreme Court. We started only with the district court and the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal does everything. It does the work of a Supreme Court. It does the work of an administrative court, of an administrative tribunal, looking at accounts, auditing, and so on. And we are supposed to now, under Constitution, create Supreme Court. Well, the question is how, with who? We are going to bring experienced judges from the Court of Appeal. We were never able to fill up the full quota numbers of the Court of Appeal. Well, if we are going to bring up the Court of Appeal members to the Supreme Court, who is going to the Court of Appeal? So the challenge continue, but we are doing it our way, and reconciliation with Indonesia, and I mentioned already earlier, and these were important for peace and stability, because many Timorese left the country and are elsewhere in Indonesia, in West Timor. We did not allow anyone to feel that they were defeated. I always said many times, in victory, and that's for any leader, for any general, in victory, be magnanimous, be wise. Do not seek to humiliate the other side. If he or she is on his or her knees, hold him and raise him up. Invite him or her to join in the new enterprise of building the country, building a new future. Some political leaders, wherever they are, I have witnessed it. Instead of immediately extending a hand of friendship, greet the other side, they start all kinds of abuse on the other side. I witnessed it with my own eyes, my own ears, even in Southeast Asia. I was on an election night somewhere in one capital of Southeast Asia. I was there in election night when the then Prime Minister was re-elected. God, instead of making a conciliatory speech, he started abusing the other side. Well, 2 years later, he was ousted. And he hasn't been back in the country since then. So that's what, at least my philosophy, at least that's what I tell people around the world. So that I hope I answered the question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very, very inspiring thoughts from you about reconciliation and peace building. Do we have another session, or is it that it? Okay. Okay, I think we have come at the end of our public lecture. We are very grateful to have you here, Dr. Jose Ramos-Horta. We have learned a lot about perseverance in nation building and state building, also your visions about geopolitics and the future of Indonesia and Timor-Leste relationship. Also, of course, membership in ASEAN. I think there were still hurdles along the way with members that are still not in agreement, but I think Indonesia is confident that we can convince these states to support your candidacy. Okay. I think I would like to close this session. I would like to hand over the session to the MC. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for the lecture. We really appreciate the knowledge and information which have been given to us by you and the very fruitful discussion that followed. We would also like to thank Mr. Ali for moderating the public lecture. We hope that the Indonesia and Timor-Leste relations will continue to foster in the future. Next, we will have an exchange of tokens of appreciations between Universitas Indonesia and the Timor-Leste delegation. Would kindly ask Mr. Professor Ari. Thank you, Professor Ari. Next, we will ask Professor Aji to kindly give the next token. Thank you, Professor Aji. Also, there will be a token of appreciation given by His Excellency, Mr. President, to Universitas Indonesia. We kindly invite Mr. Razimero to come forward with the placard. Thank you, Mr. President, Professor Ari, and Professor Aji. Thank you, gentlemen. Kindly remain in place because next we will have a photo session. I would like to invite the Vice Rector of Academic and Student Affairs, Professor Dr. Abdul Haris, her and His Excellencies, the Ministers of University of Timor-Leste, Ms. Adalgiza Albertina Xavier Ismano, Mr. Jose Agustino da Silva, Mr. Jose Lucas do Carmo Silva, Mr. Pedro dos Reis, and members of the parliaments of the Republic of Timor-Leste. Thank you very much, Mr. President, professors, doctors, her, and His Excellencies. You may retreat to your seats now. Distinguished guests, on behalf of Universitas Indonesia and the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, I would like to convey my deepest gratitude for your participation in this event. Have a safe trip back home, and may we always be healthy during these trying times. My name is Quinta, and it has been an honor to be your Master of Ceremony for today. Thank you very much, and see you next time.